Peace, God. It's the man OMNI Omni, etc. And I couldn't let today pass without doing a video on this. It's March 13th, the unfortunate anniversary of the death of Breonna Taylor. It's just terrible how they did this. You know, it's something to be said about a movement that keeps fighting long after the initial incident took place. But this is the thing. This one incident isn't an incident. Isn't, to me, it's not a standalone. It's a methodology. There's a method behind it. There's a systemic it's a systemic issue that we face. And unfortunately, systems are built by men. Everything that we have today that you can say we benefit or is a detriment to our very existence, everything around us, you know, the room I'm in was built by men, but first conceptualized. So to get to the root of these issues, I feel as though, I believe that the problem lies within the minds who commit the wicked acts. And the death of Breonna Taylor, the murder of Breonna Taylor, was indeed a wicked act. Now, I'm not going to this isn't going to be some long thing about, what transpired, what took place. We know what took place. It's been said so many times, so many ways, and so many things. And things, in so many media clips and whatnot. We've broken it down. These cops are crooked. It is what it is. And we just deal with it. But they need to be held accountable. And it's getting very difficult for them not to be. We got jurors saying that that Daniel Cameron didn't do what he was supposed to. Daniel Cameron being Kentucky's AG, Attorney General. There's a saying that goes around the legal community. Attorney General, DA, Attorney General, prosecutor can indict a ham sandwich if it wanted to. So Daniel Cameron, as lead and prosecutor on whether or not, see, this is why I don't, they just have to determine, they have to have a hearing to determine whether or not they even have a case. And then he wants to turn around and tell the grand jurors and mislead them into what charges they're looking into. They thought they were looking into specific charges that were presented to them by the AG. They didn't know that they had the power to ask for alternative charges, such as homicide, manslaughter, murder. So it's all this trickery but we're familiar with it. We're used to it. That's why a lot of black people, even though those numbers are decreasing of the amount of black people that don't believe in the vaccine, you know what I'm saying? As I mentioned uh, in my last cast here on the Word Up podcast, even though those numbers are discrete, the numbers of black skeptics on the COVID vaccine are decreasing. There's still a good number of us, myself included, that just can't trust it based off of past history. So, like, what are we left with? Should we exist in fear? Should we exist in a state of fear, constant panic? No. For it would just be that. It would just be existence. It wouldn't be living by any means. Sorry. Building the plane while we're flying it, so I'm adjusting some things. You know what I'm saying? But I feel as though I'm coming into my setup. But I couldn't let this day pass. I know it's almost midnight, but I really couldn't. I had a lot of things to get through today. But I couldn't let this day pass without speaking on this. Louisville woman, EMT, shot in her own home. They were doing a no-knock warrant for a narcotics raid. They found nothing. So they found no drugs. Kenneth Walker may have fired first, but no knock. You shot, and they recently dropped the charges. They were on Kenneth Walker's ass. About shooting a cop. They were on that boy's ass. I'm sorry, sir. That man's ass about shooting a cop. They dropped certain charges. The prosecutor here in Louisville dropped certain charges because he dropped certain charges with prejudice because they really couldn't, you know what I'm saying, proceed with the case. They still couldn't proceed with the case, and the judge finally dismissed it once and for all. Why does he have to go through that circus act? Why does he have to go through that circus act? It's ridiculous. No human being should have to go through that shit. You know, Tamika Palmer, is 1 year since her baby died. Was the strongest woman I've ever seen in front of a camera. She said there's no accountability, and I would have to agree. There has been none. And people want to bring up the 12 million that she got to settle the civil suit. It was a civil suit. It was still a criminal act. So even though they settled the civil suit, it was like, oh, you got your money. No amount of money is worth that woman's daughter. Look at your daughter and put a price on her head. How much is it? You tell me. Like, it's sickening what people do on the internet just to be. And it's like a lot of people. This is why I hate internet culture. I guess this is hate speech, but this is why I hate the culture of what the internet's become. Because I understand trolls in this, but when some real shit happens and you go out of your way to just try to make others feel as miserable as you have to feel, I got zero respect or love in my heart for you. is actually like it's the most disgusting behavior to me. That you can look at what the facts were of the situation. They shouldn't have been there. A man was defending his home, but you are trying to throw him away for life. Newsflash, LMPD, if y'all wouldn't knock down people's doors unannounced, nobody would have got shot that night. Just a thought. But we're gonna get into this clip real quick of Tamika Palmer's interview with WLKY, Louisville News. And like she said, no accountability. I'd have to agree. Definitely. No accountability. Let's get into it.
The system completely failed, Breonna.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And to know that they didn't, and to hear people say, yeah, that's wrong, or that shouldn't have happened, but nobody's gonna be held accountable for that, and that's just the problem, Of course, not to say all officers are bad, because they're not, but that's the problem. Like, there's no accountability, so they don't feel like they have to change their actions or their behaviors.
From the cover of Oprah's O Magazine to having the 2020 WNBA season played in her honor, Breonna Taylor's death resonated around the world.
I think about how I've always said that I knew she'd be great, but you hate it has to be. You hate it has to be her. Yeah. But then I try and think, who could have did it better?
I know she was so special.
It was just after midnight, March 13th, when 26-year-old Taylor was shot and killed by police as they were serving a search warrant at her apartment. As the one-year anniversary of her death approaches, Palmer reflects on the grand jury's decision not to indict the officers involved, and she calls on the community to continue to push for justice.
We still have to demand and fight, and which I don't understand why. Like, I've never seen something so black and white and nobody willing to do the right thing or what is happening inside of this unit or inside of this whole thing that nobody knows what the right thing to do is.
Carrie Grace, WLKY News.
And tonight...
Okay, so go back. Tamika Palmer, this woman. What isn't being talked about is, and let me go back real quick. What isn't talked about is Tamika Palmer. The night that her daughter was taken from her by LMPD. She was given the runaround. What isn't discussed and what needs to be discussed is how it isn't unlawful for LMPD to have shot her daughter, taking Kenneth Walker into custody. And when she shows up, they told this woman her daughter was on the way to the hospital, knowing damn well she was still in the apartment.
What the fuck is you talking about? What the fuck is you talking about? What the fuck is you talking about?
Even, let's say Breonna was everything the other side wants to say that she was. She was one of El Chapo's goons. She was moving keys, you know what I'm saying? She was wild moving keys in these streets, you know what I'm saying? She had workers on workers and goons on goons and all this extra bullshit that doesn't make sense. Let's say, you know what I'm saying, Breonna did all of that ridiculous sounding shit. That's what I literally read comments of, yo, she was a trap queen and she had all of these drugs and her boyfriend was a drug dealer. Her boyfriend was Kenneth Walker. He doesn't have so much as an arrest record. So well, I'm sorry, now he does because of that night. But I'm at the point where I don't even entertain those comments, even though they annoy me. I just have to go straight by them because I don't have time to go back and forth with pure ignorance. Makes no sense. And you're only commenting, like your comment doesn't add value to anything. Like random commenter number 2060 just making a shit comment for the sake of making a shit comment. Anyway, they gave this woman the runaround. If Breonna Taylor was all of those things that they said that she was, however, they found no drugs at her residence on that night, and things turned out the way that they were, why did they feel the need to lie? If somebody can answer that for me, I'll shut the fuck up about Breonna Taylor. If somebody can tell me that them lying was somehow to benefit Tamika Palmer and make it make sense, I will shut the fuck up about Breonna Taylor. But they won't because they can't. They won't because they can't. So they just, that little detail, they just want to whiz on by. They gave Tamika Palmer the runaround. They told this woman her daughter was on the way to the hospital, giving her some sense of hope that she would possibly be able to talk to her daughter again, see her daughter in some way, shape, or form. Hopefully giving her some sense of, oh, she's on her way to the hospital. I hope she's okay. A lot of hopes when you have a loved one on the way to the hospital. You hope to be there in time to see him. You hope it isn't as bad as you think it might be. You hope, you know what I'm saying, they'll be awake and you can talk to them. Or if they have to go into immediate surgery, the surgery may be successful. When someone says, in a in a situation where guns were involved, your loved one is on the way to the hospital, you have hope. But according to Tamika Palmer, by her account, I believe it was on the Breakfast Club. I'm not going to pull it up because I don't want the video to get flagged. And, you know what I'm saying, I don't feel like writing the rebuttal to the dispute on the channel. But according to her story on the Breakfast Club, and y'all could look it up, Breakfast Club, Tamika Palmer. It was her and it was Angela Yee, Tamika Palmer, and Angie Martinez. They collab to do that because it was very powerful. The era of Breonna Taylor is a powerful era for women, especially Black women or minority women, but Black and brown women. But why would they feel the need to give her the runaround? If they felt they were in the right, they could have immediately from the jump, ma'am, your daughter's dead. She's in the apartment still. Why tell her that Breonna's was on the way to the hospital as though there was a chance of her surviving? Y'all didn't even go into y'all had Kenneth Walker come out and y'all didn't even go into the apartment. There might have been a chance that y'all could have done something for Breonna. Just on a human level, CPR or something like that. But ma'am, she's in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. Y'all gave her the runaround. And that still hasn't been addressed or explained today. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. But let's get into more. I'm going to play one more clip and then I want to talk about something else in regards to the movement to bring justice, to bring about justice for Breonna. And justice for Breonna is justice for all people. Just want to make that clear. That's not even up for debate.
It has been 1 year since Breonna Taylor was shot and killed by police in her own home in Louisville. The anniversary of her death comes amid renewed calls for justice. Here's ABC's Zareen Shaw.
Say her name!
This weekend marking the 1-year anniversary of Breonna Taylor's killing by police against the backdrop of the Derek Chauvin trial, one of 4 officers charged in George Floyd's death. Taylor and Floyd's killing together fueled the modern-day racial justice movement in America.
Breonna Taylor's life mattered!
In Louisville, demonstrations plan to remember and honor Taylor.
Raising awareness. They want it to be done in remembrance, and they don't want a celebration because we have not gotten justice.
The 26-year-old Black EMT was killed when Louisville police executed a no-knock narcotics warrant at her home when she and her boyfriend Kenneth Walker were already in bed. No drugs were found.
Keep walking back! Walk backward!
Walker says he thought intruders were trying to enter and fired one shot, striking an officer in the leg. The officers fired back, killing Taylor.
Breonna and I did not know who was banging on the door, but the police know what they did.
Kenneth Walker had been under threat of criminal charges, but that case was permanently dismissed by a judge this week. Back in October, ABC spoke with Jonathan Mattingly, one of the police officers involved in the raid.
It's not a race thing, like people want to try to make it to be. This is a point where we were doing our job. We gave too much time. When we go in, I get shot, we return fire.
None of the officers involved were charged in Taylor's death, though one officer was indicted by a grand jury on wanton endangerment charges for shooting into a neighbor's apartment. Two other officers who fired shots during the raid were dismissed from the force. But some members of the grand jury say Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron never presented them with homicide as a charge to consider against the officers, and have now joined a group of other Kentucky citizens seeking to impeach Cameron for breach of public trust.
And this is the thing. As I said earlier, they didn't even know. The jurors didn't even know what power they had. So if we can get solid evidence against Daniel Cameron, he's out of there. Like, he needs to be removed. Seriously. This is disgusting. But what's even more disgusting is what they're trying to do to the protesters today. 1 year after this. SB that bill that I talked about either 1 or 2 episodes ago. 1 or 2 I believe it was the last. It was the last one. It was the last Word Up podcast. Kentucky SB Senate Bill 211 passed. It now makes it a misdemeanor crime, punishable by a $250 fine maximum, or a 90 or 90 days in jail. It makes it a misdemeanor to insult a police officer. Anti-First Amendment. So this is what I don't understand. They're cowardly. They're fearful of their life when they take the life of a black person. And also, they can't take an insult. They can't be taken. They can't take words.
What the fuck is you talking about? What the fuck is you talking about? What the fuck is you talking about? What the fuck is you talking about?
They can't take words, and they can't take and they're fearful on the job. So how is it the bar of policing has gotten this low? Because by all measures, police officers are spineless. If law has to be written to the point where you can't take words, that you can act out and have license to arrest, reprimand, manhandle, or possibly shoot somebody because you don't like how they're talking to you. This bill, SB211, we're going to call it the super bitch bill. At least that's what I'm going to refer to it as. Because it just lets people know that Kentucky police are so spineless and so cowardly that they can't take insults. There's a bitch right now working customer service this late at night. It's midnight. It's after midnight. That is possibly getting yelled at. Like, but if she got off the phone, pulled out a 22, and marched over to whoever's house it is because she sees the account the information on the account and sees this person's address, is she wrong for blowing that person's head off? Well, it's a 22, so swell up. But is she wrong? You know what I'm saying? Like, if the police can arrest you based off of what you say, we're in the new Jim Crow era. This is about to be Jim Crow for real. Police already don't respect the mayor to turn on their damn body camera. Now they can have their body camera off and be threatened by what you say, and that be enough of a reason to do something about you. Oh, I don't see this being abused at all. I don't see anybody, you know what I'm saying, that might have a certain attitude towards black people, I don't know, having their body camera off, because who keeps it on? Who keeps it on? An idiot, because we don't even get reprimanded for having it off. So I'm going to just keep it off. And this person that has a certain disposition to a certain demographic starts messing with that demographic for absolutely no reason. One thing leads to another. The individual of that particular demographic gets shot. No body cam footage, remember? So you only have the officer's word. What happened? I didn't like how they were talking to me. Is a legal response. They were talking to me in a threatening manner. So I had to do what I had to do. Another day on the job. I don't see anyone taking advantage of that. I don't see, you know what I'm saying, this becoming the scenario. But we'll see how this plays out. But it's here, people. It's here. And if something isn't done about this, it will be across America shortly. I promise you. If something isn't done to reverse this bill quickly, if it isn't sent to the Kentucky Supreme Court to discuss the illegality, the unconstitutionalness, because this is as anti-First Amendment as it gets, and it passed. Freedom of speech is under attack, and as an individual who has been speaking up for years, this is a problem. This is a serious problem, because now this eliminates civil discourse. This is how y'all, like, the other side was worried about how we're going to get to socialism. This right here is the quickest route to a dictatorship. When they can arrest you over things you say. I don't think it gets more anti-First Amendment. The government, under the Constitution of the First Amendment of the U.S. the U.S. Constitution, first 10 amendments are referred to as the Bill of Rights, These are the rights of the average American citizen. The first one of the Bill of Rights is the First Amendment of the Constitution, and it is the freedom of speech. You can say what you want, however you want, to whoever you want, and the government isn't allowed to step in or say anything about it. That's why when the other side talks about how Agent Orange got banned off of Twitter, Facebook, and his other social media platforms, I don't feel sorry about it because dude's ridiculous. And I don't feel sorry about it because Facebook, Twitter, and social media platforms aren't government entities. That's it. They're not government entities. Facebook is run by Mark Zuckerberg. Well, it's run by, it's a publicly traded company. That's neither here nor there. What I'm saying is, it was founded by Mark Zuckerberg. It's owned by Mark Zuckerberg. Technically, it's public, but the point is it's not owned by the government. It wasn't made by the government, and I don't want to trust any social media made by the government. Haha, jokes on all of us. The internet in and of itself may not be owned by the government, but is definitely heavily surveilled, and sorry, it's late at night, heavily monitored. I guarantee you that. But this right here, SB, the super bitch bill, SB211, accosts, insults, or says any, I think it said derisive or divisive. I think it was diversive, something to that extent. Forget the exact words, but it definitely said anyone who insults an officer. It's a misdemeanor crime. Boom. Dictatorship. Y'all were concerned about martial law, right? Guess where martial law comes? It doesn't have to come with guns and tanks. The pen's mightier than the sword. All they have to do, sign a bill, get it to pass, boom. Then the guns. That's when the sword comes. You know what I'm saying? The pen's mightier than the sword because one pen stroke can move 1,000 swords. I don't know how many officers we got here in Louisville, but because of that bill, I swear all hell's about to break loose. Excuse me. We cannot allow this to slide. I don't care what I got to do my part, but I'm gonna do it to make sure that gets repealed or that gets pushed to the Kentucky Senate so that it can be examined and ratified and repaired so that that bill, or what am I talking about, ratified, repaired? No, it just needs to go away because there's no, as far as I'm concerned, there's no upside to the bill. It just is infringing on the freedom of speech. It needs to be removed immediately. But that's all the time I have tonight. I just didn't want to let the 13th pass without me saying my piece on how I feel about Breonna Taylor. It's one of the biggest disgraces in American history, not just modern American history, because there are many atrocities throughout America's history, but this is the biggest disgrace. The reason why I say it's the biggest disgrace is because At this point in American history, America was pushing the narrative that we were better than this. That Americans in general were better than this. And this is a story of Americans. This is a story of Breonna Taylor. This is the story of John Mattingly, Brett Hankinson. This is the story of Tamika Palmer. This is the story of all of us. And if we don't get this right here, God help the future generations. God help the future generations. If we don't get something as black and white as this sorted out. See, it's not just about, you know what I'm saying? When we say black and white, we mean night and day. Apples, well, not apples and oranges, but when we say black and white, we mean something that you can clearly see the difference in and the distinction. There is a right, there is a wrong. And they know it. They know it. Why else would you want to shut up the very speech of the people? If you didn't want them to raise their concerns, if you didn't want to hear them speak, they know it's wrong, yet they still commit the wrongdoing. All of this stuff is together. Like I said earlier in the broadcast, this issue we deal with is a systemic one, but these systems were built by men, a particular kind of man. And these systems were built without thinking about certain individuals, or were put into place to hurt and keep certain individuals down. It was systemically done. And every system that we benefit from today was first conceptualized in the mind. So it's something about the mind of these particular types of individuals that causes things like this to occur. Things like Breonna Taylor, Tamir Rice. You know, something that shook me a couple of years ago, I heard David Banner say, they'll never change the system. We think the system is wrong. We think the system is broken. But what if it's working as it always intended on working? Something to think about. Till next time, we're going to have more wary observations, righteous discussions, and hopefully unite people. It's the Word Up Podcast. Peace.